Thank you, Jimmy, for the warm introduction. Good morning, CoinGeek. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined here today by my teammate Shashank. And we're delighted to present to you our Bitcoin Association Hackathon submission. Over 48 hours, we built Coda, a Bitcoin-powered developer API marketplace. But before I show you how it works and what it does, I'd like to share with you a short story about what inspired us to build this. Meet Jimmy. He's an API developer like you and I, and he loves learning about the latest and greatest technologies so he can build new APIs. Outside of his day job, he codes side projects that he's passionate about. And in his spare time, he contributes to the open source community so the world can benefit from his code. But there's a problem that Jimmy faces and developers around the world face. And that problem is that there is no simple solution for developers to monetize their APIs. We've seen time and time again developers abandoning projects because they couldn't fund them. And when we think about this on a holistic scale, we can only imagine just how much raw talent, progress, and work has been missed out on. So if we really break down this problem, we believe it's because today's payment methods are too expensive to handle microtransactions. And so this got us thinking, how might we use Bitcoin, microtransactions, to help empower developers? So to solve this, we built Coda, a marketplace where developers can earn BSV from their APIs. And instead of worrying about building a payment solution, we make it simple for developers to integrate our BSV-powered payment solution so that developers can now start earning with just microtransactions. Ultimately, though, we onboard developers into the BSV ecosystem by allowing them to monetize their code. I'll pass it over to Shashank to take us through step-by-step just how it all works.
Hi, guys. Now, our platform, Coda, presents a practical and intuitive solution to API monetization. Coda is a marketplace where API developers can post and price their API, and API consumers can benefit from APIs of their choice while paying per call in BSV for their usage. The world's first truly on-demand method for API monetization. Using Coda is simple. You code an API, you upload your endpoints, and you earn in BSV. Let's jump into how this looks like for developers. So posting an API to the marketplace. Before you begin earning, API developers have to post their APIs. This API can then be accessed and used by API consumers globally. Posting an API to the marketplace is a user-friendly process. You describe, denote, and declare. Describe your API, including giving it a name and an author, which could be a pseudonym. Denote your price. This is the price per call that your consumers will pay to use your API. It is typically sub-cents, but it's completely up to the discretion of the developer. And finally, you declare your endpoints. These are the relevant endpoints required to successfully call your API. Just like that, you have an API posted in a marketplace, and you will earn BSV per call. Now, using an API in a marketplace, this is where the consumers come in. So API consumers can access Coda to benefit from the APIs posted by your API developers. Using an API on Coda is also a simple process. You can browse our marketplace for an API that suits your specific needs. Once you find an appropriate API, you can select it. Provided you have enough funds in your wallet, it will display instructions on how you can use your API. The instructions will include Coda links that require a secret key that identifies you as a parameter before you're actually allowed to call it. You can then proceed to create your request in your application, and finally, call your API. And voila, you have successfully called your API, and funds will automatically be withdrawn from your BSV wallet as soon as the call returns a successful response. Funds will not be withdrawn if the API response is unsuccessful. Now, earning from this is also easy. As a developer, once a consumer has used your API, you can begin earning in BSV. Earning from your APIs will happen consistently each time your API is called by consumers. When the API is called successfully, funds will be withdrawn from the consumer's wallet and sent straight to the API owner. You can check your API logs to see how many times your API has been called by various consumers, and you can also see the total profit you have made from each API, as well as from all of your APIs together. On the billing page, you can check the total balance in your BSV account and all your recent incoming and outgoing transactions. There are also options to withdraw your balance to an external wallet for that final cash out. Now our old friend Jimmy can finally make money from all the APIs he's built in an easy way that connects him to many consumers. Now let's have a look at our tech stack. We built this on a Meteor.js front end with a hybrid Bitcoin SV and MongoDB backend. We use DataPay to send transactions, Bitindex to gather on-chain data, and MoneyButton's BSV library to generate our wallets. Our business model is to charge 5% of each API call. This is a microtransaction of a microtransaction, which thanks to BSV's low fees is possible. Finally, the developers' API management market size is predicted to be worth $6.2 billion in 2024. Our aim is to revolutionize a market of this size with a useful and usable product which solves a real-world problem faced by API developers globally. Now I'm going to hand the mic back to Andrew, who's going to tell you a bit about our plans for the future.
The part that got us most excited is that because of Bitcoin, this same model of value-added monetization can be applied to technology after technology. Think of Coda as the skateboard before the scooter. Coda's same model can be applied to renting cloud storage or computation services, which are huge markets in their own. So what was our journey like throughout the Bitcoin Association Hackathon? Well, over 48 hours, we were stoked to build a working proof of concept of this solution. We're just two newbies into the Bitcoin development world, but we were excited to see just how powerful and useful it could be. Since then, we've been speaking to developers from around the world, from both our own personal networks as well as the BSV networks out there, and been surveying, validating, and talking to them so that when we finally get to an alpha release, we know that the features that we've built will be useful immediately. So I wanted to share with you a few of our learnings that we found. Firstly, developers were united in looking for a solution to monetize their code. There's simply nothing out there that makes it easy for a developer to get started and start earning from their API per call. We were also super proud to find out that developers would be more willing to contribute to open source code because they had a new funding mechanism. Now we can only imagine of all the developers who can now collaborate and release code and benefit the world. But a small subset, a really interesting minority, also wanted the ability to be paid in fiat. So we imagine a world in the future where currency is interchangeable, accessible, and easy to use. And only BSV can offer this due to its ridiculously low fees. But the part that got us most excited is because we surveyed developers not just from the blockchain world, but our own networks, we were super excited to see that it wasn't just blockchain developers who wanted this solution. It was mobile developers, full stack developers, and web developers as well. So if I were to summarize our project Coda in one line, this is what it would be. Coda leverages Bitcoin to create economic opportunity for every developer in the world. Thank you.
All right, ready to face the judges?
Of course.
Always.
All right, who wants to go first? Judges.
I'll go first. I love this idea, the idea of developers being able to browse a marketplace and pick and choose different pieces of functionality that they can recombine in new and creative ways. The first thing that my mind turns to is though that I'm probably going to select bits and pieces from more than one API. How does a consumer of this service, who's probably also a developer, gain any kind of assurance over the underlying quality of the APIs that are sitting in the back end? Because I presume you don't necessarily operate the API services yourself.
That's correct. So we have a plan for this. We're going to implement a rating system before release. So each time an API is used, it can then be rated by consumers. We've also considered things such as integrating it with other systems, such as perhaps Uptime SV, who can make sure that the APIs are running correctly and make sure that the performance is fine.
Right, Dr. Wright.
So how are you going to ensure a sort of stable value over time? One of the things, of course, people talk about with crypto is that it's volatile. So if we look at $100 now per Bitcoin, it might be 10,000 in the future. And if your API call, if you've set it at a set rate, maybe suddenly it's $100 per call, and people can't afford that. So how are you going to ensure that you have continuity?
So at the moment, we have our pricing is actually, we can set it in fiat or BSV. So that way you can then set it in fiat, and that way if it's half a US dollar, that's what it will remain in the long term. No matter what happens to BSV, the conversion will happen automatically, and you'll get charged in BSV for half a US dollar. half a cent in US dollars.
And in the future, we also are thinking of ways to integrate this with fiat so that it is completely interchangeable. For the purpose of this hackathon, we found BSV was a super cool solution, but we realized for the whole world to adopt it, we will need to make it as easily accessible. So that's why we've left that sort of customizable up to the user.
Lynn, do you have comments or questions?
Yeah, right now on Bitcoin SV, the transaction fee is as low as less than 1 cent. So you can collect fees for the API calls by individual transactions, right? So that how could you extract your platform fee, like 5%, from sub 1 cent payment? Thank you.
Yep, so our monetization method is still a little in the works. In saying that, we have tested with that, and we do make a profit margin, but we do lose a lot of it, like you said, because of those fees. So some of the things we've considered is stacking that, so perhaps after 100 payments, 100 API calls, then a single fee will go through to us so that we can make our profit, but we're still considering a few different options for that. And
in the long term, we do plan to service enterprise. The way we've been thinking about this just yesterday was that just like Airbnb works with a select few properties to make them super hosts, we'd work with a select few developers to make them super developers. And then we'd work with them to become compliant so that they can serve enterprise, such as through helping them get risk ready, helping them create SLAs and stuff like that. So then that way we can actually also charge enterprise market, which would open a brand new monetization strategy.
Sam, did you have any questions?
Yeah. Since this is more developer side, I think Steve may have more questions. You have more questions, or are you done? No. After you.
It wasn't actually a question. I was just about to point out that we might be about to solve that problem for you with Bitcoin SV, because the plan is to make consolidation transactions, lots and lots of outputs into one input free. So if you're getting paid your 5% as a separate output in this transaction, you can just sit there and wait until you've got 1,000 of them or 10,000 and then consolidate them for free.
Excellent.
Okay.
That'd be super helpful.
Sam? Okay. Anyone else? We have time for one last question or comment. If not.
So how are you going to sort of open this up to data storage? And are you looking at selling storage on chain versus external systems? And what are the future expansion plans?
So right now we've sort of built a hybrid data storage system where we store a part of our user data in a Mongo database, and then all the payments, all the transactions, all the API calls on chain. But something that was brought up to us yesterday was that developers actually want to view the logs of all their requests so they can manage it. And these days, data storage is expensive. Once you get into the few hundred thousands of requests adding up, stacking up, it actually costs a lot for developers monthly. So we were thinking more about how we can leverage that for developers, but we haven't thought of it yet. We're still exploring that part.
All right. Thank you. Let's give a great round of applause to Coda.